All right. I'm ready to do this thing. Oh, you're on the wrong screen. What happened? Oh, I can't hear you for some reason either. Oh, there we go. I still can't hear you though. Say something now. You can't hear me? Oh, really? Can you guys hear me? What's happening here? I can't hear you. I feel like this happens like every week now. Let's see here. And you can probably hear my wife screaming at my kids.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, I still can't hear you though.
Okay.
My mic was coincidentally muted.
What'd you say? You can't hear me though, right? Nothing? I
just turned on the stream itself and I heard you there. So maybe it's just me that can't hear you.
Okay. So I'm hearable on the stream, but
why is this happening
in the call?
Do you have yourself muted in Discord somehow?
No. Oh, push to talk.
Oh, there we go.
That'll do it, man. That'll do it.
We solved it.
Okay, we fixed that. Don't worry, guys. You know, we're just two people, two brothers.
That's right.
You know, figuring this thing out, right?
Two brothers. Have you seen that?
Just that bit.
Just that skit. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Two brothers. Welcome everybody to our weekly wrap up. Thanks for being here today. I hope you're all doing well today. And if you're a first time listener tuning in, this is the time where we kind of just hang out for about half an hour and just chat about top of mind stuff, kind of get away from the more programmed, structured nature of our deep dive discussions or what have you. Will, my friend, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We got some more snow. It's been a very kind of snowy week for us in our neck of the woods.
We're supposed to get more on Monday too. Did you know that?
Yeah, I haven't like looked into it, but I've heard we've got this is it gonna be bad? Like I've heard stock up, but I know people always like to freak out.
So my wife went up to the store last night just to get a couple of things, and she said it was like chaos.
Oh,
that there was just
know it, man.
Tons of people there. And for you guys who are listening, we live in Arkansas, which I feel like always exudes like these jokes about like Arkansas in general. But all that to say, we don't ever really get snow, but when we do, people panic pretty heavily. Like did we get like what did we get on Tuesday? We got something where the school system shut down, but there was nothing. Like nothing was on the roads. And I feel like we said this on our last Friday discussion, maybe. I can't remember. But all that to say, our town tends to overreact a little bit, so which is fine, I guess.
For sure. But so like outside today is just a light dusting. I think the roads are completely fine. But what we're supposed to get this week or Monday or whenever, it's supposed to be like ice when it gets kind of dodgy, I think. So. Did
you hear that thunderstorm last night?
Yeah, man. There was like some hail over here.
Yeah, same here.
It's pretty intense.
It was pretty wild, wasn't it? So, well, we had a new CR episode last night. I haven't seen it, but you know me, I gotta tune in. So I did see there was seemingly a pretty big combat sesh happening.
Wait, when did you tune in? Like roundabouts?
I think it's about the 3-hour mark.
Okay.
Something
because I only watched the first half because I was struggling last night and I just was like, I'm just going to save the second half for when I'm more alert. There was a combat in the first half, but I don't know if that would have been what you saw or not. Cause I think
when I tuned in, there was about
the first half ended like, okay. Yeah. That must've been after what I saw then.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just, I can't help myself. So very quickly closed the stream. But and then Worlds Beyond, we got a new episode coming Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
And then I think you said you've already listened to part of it, and that it's a big lore episode. Man, Brennan's all about the lore, man. I feel like every ep, there's just more. There's more and more.
It's pouring in. I actually finished the episode this morning. It was really good.
Cool. That's good.
not a short episode, but like because most of them have been like 2 hours recently.
Mm-hmm.
This one was only an hour and a half, so a bit shorter.
Yeah, okay.
But you can't really feel that.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil anything for you, but I'm excited to talk about it.
And then we got GDQ starting tomorrow.
Yes, that's why I wanted to talk about that today.
Yeah, let's maybe start there. What's You know, I always like to ask, you know, what's the routine? What rituals do we have to kick off GDQ? What's your approach to this upcoming week of goodness?
I haven't looked at the schedule yet, you know, as I do.
This is the thing. Will never checks the schedule. Do you check it the day of, like the morning of, to be like, what's on the docket today, or is it just totally full blind?
Yeah, so like when we're in it, I'll check. Like, so come Sunday, I'll look at that, like, you know, look at the day, and get excited. But then like I won't, unless there's like specifically something I need to find when it is. If I like want to make sure I can hit it, then I'll like, you know, look. But otherwise, I try to keep it like an in the moment thing. Like, okay, I'll check out Sunday, but I'm not going to look at what's on Monday until Monday.
Well, they typically post the calendar like a few weeks, if not maybe like a month in advance. So have had the schedule for a while. And so I've already like kind of blocked out. My wife asked me to write down all the important runs because being a dad and like just the craziness of like life, the last couple of GDQs always ended kind of disappointed that I mean, I'm a
never got around to it.
I mean, I'm a 36-year-old dude. I'm not gonna necessarily. It's not like when you're 18 and you can just watch a Twitch stream literally all day.
Right.
So I've marked out the important ones, and we got a pretty good lineup, I'll say, for this GDQ.
Nice. What are you most excited for?
Well, do you want me to share without?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I mean,
well, there is a Majora's Mask run, which I'm really excited about.
You know who's running it by chance?
Yes. Let me pull up my.
There's one Majora's Mask runner that I really like that I found through GDQ, but I don't know if it would be him again this soon.
Let's see.
While you're pulling that up, just in case anyone watching is like, what the hell are they even talking about? Games Done Quick is what we're talking about, and it is it's an organization, and they host actually, that's not true. They host a lot of events, but they host 2 main events each year that are week-long events, and that's what's about to start this Sunday. And what that event consists of is a 24-hour non-stop live stream of the best players in the world speedrunning games. All sorts of games, retro games that, were before you were born to games that came out this year. So there's something for everybody for sure. And if you're familiar with speedrunning, you're already there. But if you're not, it's just the act of beating a game as quickly as possible. Sometimes using glitches, sometimes just based on pure skill. Blake and I love it. We find it fascinating, and it's one of my favorite weeks out of the year because like it's like literally my favorite thing. Like while because I do like 90% of my work on the computer. So like a lot of times I'll have like a YouTube video or something playing in the background. So GDQ is my favorite because it's like the absolute best. It feels like a disservice to call it background noise. But like Blake mentioned, it's not like, we're in college and we can just sit there all day devoting our full attention to it. But it's a lot of fun. So, and it's for charity. That's like the most important part I forgot to mention. The whole reason they're doing this is for charity. So they just raise money throughout the entire week doing these live streams, and it's gotten so big that they're raising substantial amounts of money at this point. And I don't know, do you know which organization it is this time?
One of them's typically Prevent Cancer Foundation. The other one's Doctors Without Borders. I don't know which
so they swap between those two for the 2 events, but I'm not sure which one we're on.
I feel like this is Prevent Cancer Foundation. Okay. I think. I just made a 50-50 guess. I don't actually know. But I was gonna say, I remembered now. The Majora's Mask run. It's a 100% run, which I love. I love 100% runs where you just get like every single. And by the way, if this still sounds kind of like, okay, this is fun to watch. My wife, I explained it to her, and she was like, "That's dumb." And then I showed her. She played Sonic as a kid, and then I showed her a Sonic speedrun, and she was like, are you kidding me? What? Like, and I was like, now imagine that all week. So she's been converted, but it's 100% awesome. Run, and it's a relay as well.
Oh, that's cool.
It's Marco 8641, Morpheus 080, Pope Squidward, and Dope Zera.
Okay.
Recognize any of those?
Not the guy not that anything wrong with those guys, but not the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, and that's Friday night, starting at 10 o'clock, and it's a 5-hour run. So nice. Those are like some of my favorites, like the end of the day runs that just kind of stretch into the late night. And my wife, when we were going over the schedule, she was like, "And you're going to stay up for that?" And I was like, "Yes." And then the other thing that happened was I have a relative supposed to be coming in town, and they were like, "Hey, we can come in this Friday or next Friday," as in like this upcoming Friday or the one after. And I was like, "You should come the one after because I got something going on." And then they were like, "Wow, we'd really like to come in this Friday, actually." And I was like, "Why'd you ask? Why'd you give me the option?" But then I was like, I really, So I'm, this loser who would rather,
Hey, I get it, man.
Out, so
I get it. I plan around these weeks for as much as I can. Like, I already told Ashley, I was like, I'm busy. Yeah, like no social events next week.
My wife gives me a hard time because she's like, I feel like there's just always something. There's something going on. There's always a new release. And I was like, it's the life of a gamer. There's just, Anyway, so I'm very excited for, oh man, sorry, I just saw the chat. So I'll get to that in a second. I'm very excited for GDQ. Going back to the chat. I just threw up a random poll because I typically have one up, and the stream got put up a little bit late, like as the stream was starting. So I just kind of randomly thought of some answers. But the question was best NPC so far, and I have been rightly called out that best NPC poll and Henry Crabgrass and Jerry aren't involved. I will say, I meant to say best NPC in campaign 3, which Henry Crabgrass is not in. True. But the fourth option, I just threw in Milo, and definitely Jerry. Jerry should have been. He should have been the fourth option.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah. So
classic.
Anyway, but yeah, so very excited about GDQ, and it starts tomorrow morning. So
Sunday.
Oh yeah, that's right, Sunday morning.
Sunday. Yeah, man, me too. Not that, I mean, I don't know if people are bored of us talking about this, but what other runs are you most excited for?
There's a Donkey Kong run that I'm really excited for because I played a lot of Donkey Kong as a kid. So Donkey Kong Country.
Like the SNES one.
There will be a Mario, like the harder levels section. I think it's called the Lost Levels. That one I'm really excited about. I think there might even be like a Super Mario Maker.
Ooh, those are always a ton of fun.
Yeah, run through, which is really fun. They're going to play the new, this is all Mario games. They're going to play the new Mario game, Wonder, which got reviewed really well.
Yeah.
There is an Ocarina of Time run that I'm excited about. Those are the ones that, there's a Baldur's Gate 3 run, which I'm not going to watch since I haven't played the game yet. Those are the ones that come top of mind. Sometimes for me, though, like the very, indie niche games are some of my favorites. Like games you kind of discover watching GDQ.
For sure. Like obviously some of the big games that you're familiar with are really cool to watch because you can understand from having played them. But honestly, at this point, I do love those. But at this point, my favorite thing about GDQ is like discovering the runner. And regardless of what game they're playing, because some people are just so like, I don't know if charismatic is necessarily the right word, but they're so like good at like being entertaining while explaining what's happening. Like even if you're not familiar with the game, it's just like really captivating. So I always find like one or two new like streamers that way. I'm excited. And one of my favorite blocks, which I'm assuming they're doing it, is there's like usually one night where they'll play like horror games all night. And I just like the vibe of like the real late night. And it's usually like, I won't say that because that's not necessarily true. But yeah, I love that. I'm excited, man.
I love randomizers too. It's one of my favorite things. There's only one randomizer in this schedule. And it's Pokemon Crystal. and that'll be a full item randomizer, which is kind of cool. It's cool how, for people who aren't familiar, a randomizer is where basically the items you would find, like think about a game you play, and like a Zelda game is probably easiest example, but you know, in the first dungeon you find the bow, for example. What a randomizer does is it takes those items and swaps them all up without breaking the game, without like breaking the sequence. Like you can't come to a dead end. So like the first dungeon might drop the hook shot. And so now it's like, well, now this opens up a different pathway that maybe I wasn't, you know, a typical playthrough I couldn't get through. So the creativity of all that's really fun for me. So I'm excited for that.
Agreed. Too. I love those. Cam asks, so I have a weird question. If your channel name is the Pixelists, why isn't your logo in 8-bit or 16-bit? We actually thought about this, like for, you know, if we got some like new logos and stuff made, should it be like that kind of retro feel? But the name in its, you know, and the origin of the name wasn't necessarily to evoke that retro feel. It wasn't like not supposed to evoke that, but the idea behind it was we were just trying to think of like a broad name that could, like, because we didn't necessarily want to completely pigeonhole into like D&D only necessarily. And we actually started the channel talking about Marvel stuff. So I was like, what's like a broad name with just like we could talk about anything nerdy that we wanted. And so somehow landed on Pixel because like everything is composed of pixels. So plus I was trying to think of a name that like wasn't a real word, so we didn't have to run into the issue of like, oh, that's taken. So that's kind of where it came from.
And also combined with the fact that like we're just a couple of broke dudes who you know, we're just like, let's talk about nerd stuff. So it was like, what can we get for as little money as possible? And I think our friend Nate made the logo we're using now, which we're really happy with too. So anyway, speaking of D&D, one thing we like to talk about on the channel is D&D content and DMing. So if you guys have any questions about D&D or what makes a great DM, I'm going to change it up a little bit. I have a question for you, Will, to throw in some of your DM expertise, and also for you guys in the channel. I'd be curious what y'all think of this. As a DM, how do you make failure rewarding for your party? And like a good example of this would be like the Bell's Hells were wanting to stop the Apogee Solstice from happening, or the ritual, and yet it did happen. How do you make it where your players don't feel like their efforts are wasted? And I'm asking this because in one of my campaigns, I have kind of like this big, I think I just lost my camera, actually.
Yeah, you went dark.
Yeah, hang on, my camera just shut off on me. Hang on. Overheated.
Overheated?
Yeah, it might have overheated.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Okay, we're back. That was weird. In one of my campaigns, there is this sort of like investigation happening, but like what they're trying to stop, it's like already too late to stop it, if that makes sense. And I'm being kind of vague because I know a couple of them watch the channel, so I don't want to get like too in the weeds. So I can you know, think about the comedy thing, like the plan's already in motion. I knew you were going there. Yeah, I knew you were going there. It's so funny how like we just know as soon as I started saying I knew you were going there. We're quoting an old Derek comedy skit. Anyway, they're investigating, the way it's kind of played out, they're investigating something and they've realized there's like a plot that they want to stop, but which I didn't kind of expect that angle, but it's already too late to stop it. And so like I guess I could change it, but there's kind of some things that would have to be really heavily retconned in a very clunky way. It's not necessarily like I can pick up and move it. All that to say, my apprehension now is my players getting to like 3 or 4 sessions from now and being like, what the heck? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, like not only did we fail, but like you as the DM this wasn't fair. And sometimes failure can be like some of the most meaningful moments in a story, right? Like, I mean, imagine how boring a story would be if you just always were successful at everything you did. So that's like my long-winded question to you. I'd love to get your advice on how do you make failure rewarding and where your players still enjoy the story even if they didn't accomplish what they set out to do.
Yeah, and that's tough. That's a good question. So for your specific situation, just to make sure I understand, and I know you wanted to be kind of vague, but so like there's this overarching plot that's happening and your players have this like new angle on it that they're like, we want to stop this. Right. But in your mind, like that was already a foregone conclusion.
Right.
And like all these other pieces are in place because of that. So it's kind of hard to like,
exactly. Yeah, you get it.
So yeah, I mean, that is tough because, you obviously have put a lot of work in these other things. So I would say that I think you don't need to change that, obviously. But if you're picking up on the fact that like this is like really important to them and like that's what they've decided to hone in on, focus on, maybe shift it. But I'm not saying you need to do that. That'd be more of like I couldn't know that answer. Mm-hmm. But like if you thought that was like truly that important to them, then maybe it's worth shifting things around. But if it was just like the current idea that they're focused on and maybe not that big of a deal, then I would say, full steam ahead. But in terms of making failure rewarding, it's so tough because I feel like it just so heavily depends, right? Because if it is something that they've like spent 5 sessions on the whole time, like plotting out and working towards, and like behind the scenes, it was really like all for nothing. And that is probably going to like feel bad, even though they won't know that it was necessarily doomed from the start. So I don't know. It's tough, man. I wish I had like a good answer for this, but one, I feel like it depends. And 2, I feel like it really depends on what type of game they're coming for. Like, are they the type that are going to enjoy failure if it leads to like a really interesting story point and they can be like, oh, that sucks, but like, oh no, like this is what we're dealing with now, like this is crazy, or are they just going to be like down in the dumps because they failed, So again, if it's more towards the latter, then I would consider shifting things a bit, but I don't know, this isn't a good answer because I'm not really giving you anything concrete, but yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on it thus far? Like, are you?
And sorry, my camera, I have this DSLR camera, and I guess, I don't know, this never happened before, but it keeps popping up that the temperature is too high and that it's cooling off. So I've never actually seen that happen, but just keep, turning it off, turning it back on again.
Yeah.
Hopefully nothing
tried and true.
Hopefully nothing too catastrophic happens with this. So
yeah,
I
guess. Sorry, to kind of put a cherry on top of that thought, since it was basically a complete non-answer to you. I guess if we're in the situation where they're gonna fail, like that's not gonna change and they're gonna fail, I would just try to think of like some kind of consolation or concession that it's like, well, this didn't work, but this is what you still did get from this. Like the plan failed. It's kind of like with the Ruidus thing. Like they didn't stop it, but they did sabotage the Malleus key, and now like Predathos isn't all the way out, or whatever you want to call it. Like so there was some victory, even though it was a failure.
Yeah, and I almost feel like sometimes those like victories should be somewhat clear. Like I feel like Matt's even almost so much had to be like, hey, because you did this, here's the react. Like I think most recent example was like they can't detect invisibility, and that's because of what you guys did with the Malleus key. Those are like nice breadcrumbs on top, but like the very open, obvious one of like Predathos isn't free, the world isn't over yet.
Yeah,
those things are a little bit better served. And then I think also, I've worked really hard to build a lot of trust with my players, and Matt's talked a lot about the trust factor at the table. If your players trust you, they're going to be a lot more willing to go along with the latest development than to be openly frustrated and mad and, what the heck you doing, man?
Yeah.
So now the question then becomes, how do you build that trust? And, time's a big factor in that, but also, learning your players, knowing what they'd like. I will say I took your advice on the player I had who's a big Star Wars fan. And, so I got to tell this quick story. So we just met. This is my second campaign. We just met on Wednesday. Had this amazing 3.5 hour, 4 hour session, and at the very end, the loot they got was a Sunblade, and I homebrewed a little bit, taking chat suggestion. But it's basically a Sunblade, and I described it basically as close to a lightsaber as you can.
Yeah.
So I describe it, and he is giddy. He's like, "Oh my gosh!" And then his fiance sitting next to him, she goes, "I think I want to reach out and take it." And he was like, "Wait, what?" And she goes, "It's pretty obviously for me." To which I'm thinking, "Is it? Is it pretty obviously for you?" And then they have this micro moment that I'm kind of trying to stay out of. And she's like, "I mean, I just think it's pretty obvious for me, the paladin." And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah." So now he doesn't even have it. So I'm like, well, great. Now I need to think of something else to reward him with. But
that's hilarious.
Anyway, so it was a fun session though. Legends of Abhale. If you can deliver that failure as a lesson to learn from and give them encouragement to go forward. I love that, by the way. I think sometimes the party does need encouragement, even out of character, so to speak, of hey, everybody, you've made a meaningful impact here.
Yeah.
Even if the bad guy gets a W, putting a clock on things will keep the party moving forward. I like that. The dungeon my party just cleared had no locked doors. Instead, they were enchanted with the fear effect. So we had wisdom saves of varying DC instead of lockpick challenges, which partly terrified, whole party terrified of this heart sign is blocking.
Oh yeah, we can. I think it probably door.
A door is hilarious roleplay fuel. I love that advice. Thank you for that. So yeah, anyway, just fun stuff, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know, man. That's I think, like you said, if you've got that trust with the table, especially, then I think they'll be okay with failing. But you just got to make it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's good advice.
I'm interested to hear how this is. Is this the group you were just talking about?
No, this is another group.
There's the other group.
They meet every other week. So
that you've been playing with for a lot longer, right?
About 2.5 years.
Yeah, then I'm sure it'll be fine then. Maybe I would just say that if it is something that the next 6 sessions are revolving around this one plan, then maybe try to, give them some concession. But otherwise I think they'll, I think you've got that trust that they'll be able to withstand the failure and, not get upset about it.
Yeah. No, it's good. Well, we're coming towards the end of our chat today. I have a hard stop here in a few minutes to get out on the road, the icy road. Did you see the Steam top 10 highest revenue games this year? That got released today?
I did not.
We had Baldur's Gate 3 at number 1, which I think it did 620 million in sales on Steam. So big W for Larian.
With no microtransactions, right?
I know, with no microtransactions.
That's crazy.
There's so much to talk about with this game, man. I love how it's changed the industry. And then I don't remember what else was on here. I think Starfield was number 3 at 325 million. But there was an indie game. Oh man, I don't have it in front of me. Let's see here. Steam top 10. Here we go. An indie game. It was the number 9 called Lethal Company. It released in October and it made $52 million in revenue and was made by one developer.
That's crazy.
Has now made it.
He's feeling good. Yeah, I haven't played it or anything, but I am familiar with it. It did blow up.
I've never heard
That's
of it.
Crazy, man. Sorry, what'd you say?
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it just kind of came up out of nowhere, which I guess it did if it's just a one-man indie game. But yeah, I think it kind of blew up in the I think in the YouTube kind of Twitch meta, if you will, or a lot of those personalities were playing it.
Yeah, okay.
kind of like Among Us. I like not that the games are similar, but like kind of had a similar surge. That's crazy though, man.
Can you imagine being that dev and making that game? You were set. I mean, you're set for life. $52 million.
Yeah, that's like Toby Fox, basically. You know, are you familiar with him?
No, I'm not.
He's the Undertale. Oh. He made Undertale.
Oh, that's cool. Eric said it's a horror Among Us that gets creative. Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Okay. Well, I think I'm all out of things to talk about.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about Worlds Beyond when we get to that. And really just Games Done Quick. You know, that would be my final shout out here for those of you that weren't familiar with it before today. Definitely check it out. And my advice would be if you're not familiar with it, and if you're not familiar with speedrunning, were you just looking at the schedule? Could you post that in the chat, like a link to it? So if you're not familiar, my advice would be to look through this schedule, find a game that like you really love, maybe played growing up, or maybe you're playing currently, and check that out to see if you're into it. Cause that's the best way to kind of first get exposed to it, is with a game you're already familiar with. So you can kind of understand what's happening. But yeah, that starts Sunday. And it'll last literally 24/7 until late the following Saturday night. So that's what I'll be doing in my free time next week. And I don't know if, again, if anybody's interested, we have a Discord channel devoted to this, what we may be hanging out in. And then in previous years, we've also used my Twitch chat as like a personal hangout room for anybody that was also watching GDQ. So I might do that again. But yeah, if that interests you, you'll be able to find everything in the Discord. So
yeah. Well, thank you all for tuning in today, and stay tuned for, I think we'll do maybe a little Sunday Fun Day this Sunday. Maybe we'll tune into GDQ or something. I don't know. And then Worlds Beyond coming, and then our next CR discussion next week. So thank you all, and we'll catch you soon.
Bye, y'all. Thanks for coming.